that when the people in the know, Rich, heard that you were doing this, they were like, I'm going to be there.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
Pressure's on now then, hey?
the pressure's on now. So Tracy, do any questions, literally put them in the chat box. Really want to hear from you. You can chat with anyone. Rich and I can chat with anyone. So what are we going to be discovering, Rich? Well, really, we're gonna discover how you've really broken all the rules, haven't you? Well and truly broken them, and grown your practice, to with over 5 years to over 250,000. You employ 9 people, and you're not on social media. So that's a rule you've broken. Naughty. But you bought another thing you've done is you don't have a team. Well, you're starting to grow a team in the UK, but you are offshore, and you've built a strong team offshore, and you have a number of niches. One of those is hospitality, and even worse, you sell FD work with business coaching. Oh, Rich, we're gonna have to just get you out of the institute and all of that. You're breaking all the rules. So let me properly introduce Rich instead of sort of bantering. So you started your professional life with KPMG working in audit in Leeds. I met my husband in Leeds, by the way. He then swapped the suits and skyscrapers for ping pong tables and beanbags. Guess who nicked that off your bio? Via the East London tech startup scene. So we got Damien here, who I don't think you could call South London the tech startup scene, but I know Damien really wants to hear about your journey. You then went to start, I think it's 3 brands you've got. So you've got Create, Rock and Roll Finance, you've accountancy, you've got Create.finance, and there's a third, isn't there?
Yeah, there's Create, Accelerate, and Zen Bookkeeping.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So as I said, you're now at 250,000 in turnover, you employ 9 people. And I think for everyone that's here today, you're going to have a real treat, because you'll find that Rich has got very strong views on the state of the world today, very strong views on how to do a different kind of accountancy service and how not to. And indeed, if you go to his website, you'll find a page that says the title, We Have Opinions. So welcome to you, Rich. And Rich, do you want to give a pen portrait of your 3 brands?
Yeah, sure. So we kind of, on our journey, identified like there's 3 kind of groups of clients that we service. One is hospitality businesses, usually owner managed. So pubs, bars, restaurants, cafes, that sort of thing, independent owner managed businesses. We also work with quite a lot of startups who are kind of in various sectors, but are on a kind of growth journey to get to kind of, through the funding cycle of seed funding, angel investment, and then eventually Series A. And the final lot is kind of like, the standard, mates and family members who need their accounts and tax return doing because they're a freelance physiotherapist or dentist or whatever. So yeah, we've got a cluster of people who are kind of companies of one that we just do compliance stuff for, basically. But we figured that like each one of those has different pain points, different needs, and rather than have it all under one roof and kind of try and be a bit vague in our messaging, we really wanted to like have a separate storefront for each of those people or groups of people, so we could kind of really tailor our messaging and our marketing to them as kind of separate groups.
And I think there's a really big message there, is that, as you say, you've properly segmented who you serve, and you have a different brand for those, so you're not diluting your message. So why don't you give a little bit of a pen portrait of Create? So what was the original intention? Because it wasn't, I'm guessing it wasn't to be way out there.
No, the original intention was really just kind of to give those independent owner managed small businesses access to kind of FD type services. So there were lots of accountants out there in the world that were doing the compliance piece, and they would do the, your accounts, your tax return, VAT return, keep you out of jail, see you again next year sort of thing. But for those small business owners who really have a bit of a blind spot on the kind of numbers and finance side of their business, there was an opportunity to do way more for them and really sort of help and support them to have kind of the 3 things that we try and do for all of them, which is to give them, help them make more money, give them some more free time, take the financial admin away from them, and reduce their stress levels and increase their enjoyment. So yeah, doing all those 3 things for people is basically what all our services are set up to deliver in some way, shape or form.
And I just want to almost highlight that there's a real clear purpose there. And I think for most of our peers, we love them dearly, don't we? And we think they do a great job. But I doubt you'd see many people with that level of clarity, what we're there to do and a mission. You normally hear accountancy words muddled in there. And I think that's one of the things. So what prompted you to start? What was it that made you jump out of cushy rolling audit? What made you start?
Well, it's kind of weird. It was a bit of I was kind of between jobs. So I was just like, took a few months off to decorate my house. And
Yes.
I got a bit of an SOS call from some mates of mine who'd all had a bit of a midlife crisis and decided to start their own restaurant. And basically, in their eyes, they couldn't find a decent accountant who could really help them to figure out why they weren't making any money. So they knew they were really busy. They were working all the hours God sent, but they just weren't seeing any cash build up in their bank account. And they just couldn't figure out why. So they said, "Could you help us out with that?" And I kind of said, "Well, go on then. I'll see you on Monday, 9 a.m." So off I went and just tried to understand from their perspective, like how the business worked, like how do you get the money off the customers? How do you cash up at the end of the day? Who's doing the rotas? Who's doing the timesheets? How are you managing supply payments? All this kind of stuff. And the kind of conclusion I kind of came to was like, yeah, like an accountant that's doing your accounts and tax return ain't going to be able to solve the problems you've got. What you need is like a virtual FD. And 5-10 years before that would have cost a lot of money because you had to pay someone by the hour or by the day to come in and be in the business and do all that work. But as luck would have it, technology was kind of going through that curve of innovation where it was becoming really readily available to have a tech stack in place that would allow me as the virtual FD to sit at home and open my laptop and know, like, by looking at my computer, exactly what they'd sold in the last 30 seconds, how much money was in the bank, how many people are working for them right now, how much it's costing them per hour, what their current VAT liability was, all that kind of stuff was possible. And so we can deliver that at a much lower price point than it would have cost in the kind of the olden days, if I can call them that, free cloud.
And I think there's a really good point here, because we talk about in our portfolio FD group in the club, which you've just joined, is we make a real core differential. A virtual FD is operational. They are meshed into the business, which is very different, because you and I see a lot of people go, "Oh, we're an accountancy practice. We do management accounts, so we have a virtual FD service." And it's not, is it? It's no, we do management accounts, so we put a pretty title on it. It's not the same. So, what do you see as that, that cloud CFO? What do you see as that? As what does that mean for you?
So yeah, it's a bit of a kind of a phrase I kind of came up with to trying to basically say it's a virtual FD. And I kind of actually stole the name off a guy who I know who is a marketing guy, and his business was called Cloud CMO. So a chief marketing officer that's done virtually. And I thought, yeah, I'll pinch that and change one of the letters. And lo and behold, I've got a company name. But like more than that, it was kind of about building a kind of like the almost like a persona or a kind of like just imagining a type of service where you could have, like the virtual FD service for small businesses that was previously out of reach is now here. And it's, it's about being a co-pilot, really. I don't, we're only one step removed from their business in kind of, and that's only due to a kind of the legal way it's limited company set up. Really, we're part of their business. We're alongside them for the journey, and we want to kind of coach, help support them to make the best business they can. And we use a whole smattering of technology to enable that, but really it's about the human relationship and them having that confidence that they've and trust that they've got someone who's got the finances under control, they've got their eye on it, and they don't have to worry about it anymore. I think that's the most valuable thing we do, way more than just sets of management accounts or whatever else.
And I think we need to almost point out we're 10 minutes into this, and it's me that's mentioned accountancy jargon, not you.
Brilliant.
But that's a really strong point here, isn't it? Is you're going in and you're delivering a brand that's human focused, that it is about, as you say, you're part coach, you're part FD, you're leveraging technology, and you've got a team behind you that does the actual accounting bits for you. But so often people lead with the accounting bits and then wonder why they got people going, "I can't pay more than £200 a month for that, mate." So we'll do it cheaper. So, we must have known each other now about almost 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, you know, I've seen you have this gem of an idea and grow it. So what are the things you would say that really accelerated your growth?
It's funny because I don't think we've actually grown that fast. I think I took like 5 years. We could have grown a lot quicker if we'd, if you'd really gone for client acquisition as our kind of goal and objective. In many ways, it's kind of the opposite. It's like leads come my way, and I'm just like, oh no, I don't want any more clients. We haven't yet perfected. Well, it's never perfect, but we haven't got a fully sort of scalable, robust set of systems that do everything we need to do. So bringing on clients was kind of necessary to fund the team and to be able to road test things. But we're by no means the finished article. And yeah, we're still in the phase where I'm just thinking about the foundations, getting the foundations really solid so that we've got a platform for real growth, if you like, in the future. If that answers
Yeah,
I haven't really answered the question, but yeah.
No, but I think you really have answered the question, and I don't know some of your background. I think there's a couple of things here. One, you are growing, you're not scaling yet, and that's a really important distinction because so many people equate growth with scaling. Growth is about being able to win new clients. Scale is about being able to do that at pace without you running out of time. And this is the problem faced by every kind of FD centric business. And I can see we've got Alistair, Damien, Tracy, that are 3 FDs. So they're all sitting there nodding their head at me at the moment, going, this is the core issue, because you have ultimately built a business that is about brand rich. And if you look at any of your website, it is brand rich, isn't it? You could have had a book, you could have had a talent manager, all of this stuff, the way that your websites look. You built, and how do you scale brand rich? And how do you do that when actually you've got a huge dedication to service? You want to do a really good job every single time. And I think this is the challenge that we face with that portfolio FD business. And so I want to go back a little bit. And interestingly, what you're doing is ensuring that you have a solid foundation. And I know you've invested heavily, and we're going to come on to that, your team in the Philippines. And great to see, Alistair, that that's a service you want to offer, and you've just started that coaching certification. And I would actually say that at a FD level, the coaching side is such an enabler. And I know you've had one session, haven't you, of certified growth? And I know a lot of the members that were doing that came off that and said, wow, they finally got what it meant to listen at a deeper level, to be able to bring people on a journey, which very often we think we're listening, but actually we're thinking about the answers in our head to the question that we plan that they're going to ask next. That's not really listening. So there's a really interesting point here. Number one was that you set about finding the back office. And I know you've spent quite a bit of time, because we've had conversations about who do you recommend, and you've got your back office ticking over. And you visited the Philippines. The fact that it was deep dark winter here had nothing to do with it, I'm sure of it. 30 odd degrees over there. I wouldn't want that in the midst of winter over here. Lucky thing. But the other thing is that you haven't run at it, have you? You've been very purposeful. And now you're in that phase of, how do I build out the team in the UK to scale? And is that about fair?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. I think, virtual FD work would have been really great and really easy to do if clients had a really finely tuned in-house finance team where the books were all sorted, reconciled up to date within a few days of the month end, and all the information, the data was there. Because then you can layer on top the coaching and the advisory piece really easily. But the problem I found with most of my clients, we didn't have the data. They didn't have the systems processes to be able to give them any kind of real insights. So sort of to be able to do the last bit, we had to kind of figure out how we could deliver the building blocks, basically. So build basically an outsourced finance function. So we're not just the FD, we're with a whole finance team.
Question to you from Tracy. Who are you using in the Philippines? Because are you still using Virtual Staff Finder to help you find the team?
We've used a couple of different things. So Virtual Staff Finder we actually used to find the first couple of freelance people. Some were doing marketing though as well. Some was doing like virtual PA stuff, and a couple of financy people as well. We actually ended up using a company called Intelligent Outsourcing. So there's a guy called Nikolai Naylor who you can find on LinkedIn, who runs Naylor Accounting. And he basically set up that for his own firm initially. So he had an offshore team and then started to recruit for other accountancy businesses as well. So I recommend looking them up. And then kind of over time, we've ended up going more towards back to a freelance type model, where we're kind of sourcing our own people now that we kind of know what we're looking for, and we've got the kind of training and recruitment systems all kind of laid out. We've been able to kind of recruit ourselves so that we've got people who actually kind of work for us rather than work for someone else to then work for us, if that makes sense.
And I think that's really important, but actually it's very difficult to go straight in with a not vetted, when we've used Virtual Staff Finder and they're very good, and you say what you need and the more detail you give, and they'll give you 3 or 4 shortlisted candidates. But people have told me that when you are offshoring the Philippines, you've got a 50% hit rate with who you hire, and half the time they're brilliant and half the time they want to go there. And so hospitality is one of your niches, music is one of your niches. I can't, 2020 was Armageddon for those 2 areas. So why did you choose those industries?
The hospitality one came about because of the SOS call. So that was kind of like my lead into there. And I'd worked in bars before. I kind of knew roughly how I managed a bar actually. So I knew how kind of like a P&L for a pub worked, that sort of thing. So I had some experience I could kind of bring to the party. And I think for a sort of purpose perspective, like I love like independent coffee shops, independent bars, restaurants, that sort of thing. They're kind of places I like to visit. I want to see thrive. So there's a real nice sort of dovetail with that. But part of the reason we grew the startup side of the business, the Accelerate brand, was purely because we found we were kind of too reliant on one sector. So like if a pandemic happens, for example, and no one can afford to pay you anymore, we needed to have another a diversify slightly into a different sector. So and when I started up this business, we didn't make huge amounts of money for the first couple of years. So I was doing like freelance gigs on the side, temp roles in startups around London mainly, and kind of saw like problems there with like early stage companies building in-house finance teams was very difficult. So kind of thought, well, there's a problem we could solve here, which is like we could breed a kind of accountancy as a service, plug and play finance function for those guys as well, with a few tweaks to what we were already doing for the hospitality guys. So that was how we kind of got into that one as well.
And I think it's really interesting because at the moment we're seeing tech startups being hit left, right, and centre and taking a bashing because interest rate rise, investors are being, should we say a little bit more circumspect about who they'll give their money to. And so I'm imagining what you're now seeing is hospitality coming back up in a growth phase, so really needing your support, and less so from the tech. Or am I just completely making an assumption?
Well, I think I mean, you can talk about broad trends, but for us, like, the main the hospitality sector is still the most challenging by far, I'd say, because you've got wage rises and energy costs that are affecting all businesses in that sector. So it kind of, you'd think that would mean, oh, well, surely they'll cut back on their accountancy services then. But you actually find the opposite is true. They really need to understand their labor costs every single week. They want to understand how much they're paying for electricity. And if you can show them that with your help, we've helped them to increase their prices, boost their profit margins, and we can show them that, look, despite what you read in the news, you're actually making money, you're doing okay, let's keep going, or let's change these few things. So actually, I think there's even more, to use an overused phrase, value that can be added in crisis times when times are tough than potentially even in the good times.
And I think that's a really good point because, a lot of your peers are a virtual FD. They are very, should we say, not niche focused. They're sort of their business life stage focused. That there's the tech people, but you tend to hear that, well, we're kind of round about the sort of PE or the buyout or the whatever. And what you're hearing here, and I'm not saying that that's wrong, because there's a lot of need for that level of service, but what you're just demonstrating is when you can really talk the language of what your clients want and need, and you're not going, do you just need to know your numbers? The point resonates. So I've got a question here about outsourcing. So I'm going to answer that question, and then Rich is going to answer that question. So Pankaj or Pankaj, I hope I've said your name correctly. From the UKR perspective, so you've got offshoring and outsourcing. So what you'll find is some of the mid-tier large firms will actually set up their own offshore office. So we're talking the likes of the BDOs and the Blick Rothenbergs and whatever. But what they will tend to do is nearshore. So they will often be in Romania. They'll often be in Poland, that sort of area. When we're looking at what I would call the smaller, more independent firms, they're not going to be nearshoring. They will either use an outsourced or an offshore solution. So India and Philippines are the two main kind of key centers, with growing centers in Pakistan and Bangladesh, and also some sort of around Sri Lanka as well. India, I perceive as the center of the outsourcing industry, which is where a company will say, we will do this for you. We hire the staff, we control the staff. And what you're doing is you're buying a seat from us, but they're not your staff, or you're buying a certain amount of work done from us, but they're not your staff. Whereas offshoring is where and the Philippines, I would probably say, is the leader in the offshore industry as far as I see. I forgot South Africa's got a growing outsourcing offshoring. And when you're offshoring, you may have a company that helps you find them. That company may give them an office, and so you tend to pay a desk rental, and then you tend to pay the individual, and you'll pay it through the business processing operation. Then there's another stage of offshoring, which is where you personally contract with that individual and you pay them direct. Have I got any of that wrong, Rich? As I think you know a bit more about this than me.
Well, I don't know. No, I think that's pretty much what we've experienced. We've been through those 3 phases. So yeah, when we started out, we were like, yeah, we know we need to kind of get some offshore or outsource resources. And we started off using the outsourcing model. So we'd pay for another company to prepare and review accounts and things. And we found that that's great if you're doing like compliance-based services, because it's a kind of a repeatable process, and it can be created and put together by the outsourcing company to deliver that order. So you order a set of accounts, they'll deliver it. But with our way of working, because we're working with quite a small number of clients, but in quite a high value way, where a lot of things are bespoke and customized to the client, it was quite difficult to get them to kind of dovetail with our way of working. And most of what we do is basically like bookkeeping and, bank recs, and you have to kind of understand the client to be able to do those correctly sometimes. So we wanted to get someone sort of full-time working for us that we could really sort of educate and get the benefit back of that education and training that we give them, because they were just working solely for us. So yeah, we moved towards the offshoring model, and then we've gone all the way to the directly. It's almost like an employee, but it's not quite. It's a freelancer technically speaking, but it's an employee in all but name, basically. Yeah,
absolutely, because we don't want to be running a Philippines payroll.
Exactly. Yeah.
We love our staff over there. So so one of the things that you do is, as you say, you're part FD, part business coach. So given the fact that costs are rising, your companies are feeling the squeeze, how do you get them to realize they want to buy more than just their accounts and tax from you?
I could probably, I'll answer that with a quote. I think it was Steve Jobs who said, a lot of the time people don't know what they want until you show it to them.
Yes.
So loads of people get in touch and say, yeah, I need an accountant because I need accounts and tax doing. And that's what they think they need. But what they really need, and we know this from the benefit of our experience, is they need that virtual FD, that cloud CFO that we talked about. And there's a couple of ways we've done it. One is you can sort of show them what you do for other clients. You get the case studies, you get the testimonials, you get them to talk to them, and they'll sing your praise and say how great you are. That kind of helps. Kind of helps people to sign up sometimes. And the other one is like we have done things where we'll do it, for free for the first quarter or something. So like there's certain clients who are very sort of price sensitive and didn't want to spend a lot of money, which is understandable. But we could say, look, like, why don't we do you this for free for the next quarter? We'll give you a report and a meeting and show you what our kind of virtual FD service looks like. And then they're just sold on it as soon as they see the kind of impact and results it's had. But it's not their fault that they don't know that they want that, because they've just never come across it before and they don't know, they haven't experienced the value they can get from it. If that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a certain size of business that gets poorly serviced. Now, I'm not talking about the freelancers. I'm not talking about the businesses under 250K, because actually, I know it sounds a little bit arrogant, but those are simple businesses. And actually, what they do is they need a good compliance service and an occasional phone call. It's the people from there upwards to about 2 million that often get a really poor service. They get stung for bad quality bookkeeping. They supposedly get this, high touch service, which they don't. And then they wonder why they're spending so much for so little. And I do think that there is this middle ground. They're not quite ready for a proper, spend £3,000 a month on a proper FD service, but they need something in between. And I do think that there is a gap. And what I'm hearing is that actually you're filling that gap right up to the FD bit.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, you've got to make it kind of affordable from a kind of value equation perspective. So, there's no good charging a ridiculous amount to a small company because they're never going to be able to realize.
Yeah.
Well, even with maybe they will actually with if you're really, really awesome. But, for us, we want to make it kind of, show them that what's achievable is not that far in the distance. And we just want to charge like a fair amount of that value that we provide. So, yeah. And like, again, it's thanks to technology, automation and the ability to offshore and the ability to automate. That means you can do most of the work in a streamlined, efficient way, so that the real cost comes on the kind of the human side, and you can really go big on that.
Right, here is the question that I think everybody wants to know. You don't use social media. Now, I know that you have a profile on LinkedIn, but to say that it's sparse is probably a little bit, should we say, of a bit of an exaggeration. So how do you generate new business? What are you actually doing? Because this is what we're being told. If you're an accountant, you have to be on social media to generate business. How do you do it? Because I doubt you're sitting there networking at BNI every Monday morning at 6 a.m.
No, yeah, and it's annoying that, isn't it? Being having things rammed down your throat, like, oh, you've got to be on social media 3 times a day. So yeah, I kind of one of our core values is like dare to be different. So if I see that everyone else is doing something, I'm the kind of person who'll do the exact opposite. So like, yeah, everyone's like trying to be on social, trying to do, get the word out via those channels. And to me, it's just noise, like that from a marketing perspective. From a sort of societal perspective, it's just toxic, horrible. It doesn't vibe with me at all. I could see how it has some utility in the early days for connecting people and allowing them to share information, stories, photos, all that kind of stuff. But it's gone way beyond that now, hasn't it? Let's be honest. So yeah, I won't label that one, but yeah, it's not really for me. So the way we've grown instead is a little bit more old school, really. Just so far, it's just been like word of mouth, referrals, introductions, people passing the word through the network, which is good in some ways because, a trusted friend or contact recommending someone is like one of the best ways to have confidence in that they're the right person, right supplier for you. But at the same time, yeah, our gene pool is kind of limited to the people that we know and are connected to. So there will come a time in future when we decide to go to the scaling phase where we'll have to do marketing, but it won't be on social media. We'll do some other interesting stuff instead. And yeah, and if you think that I've got some kind of what's the word? The cognitive dissonance of having a LinkedIn profile is too much, then yeah, I'll happily delete that for you if you think I'm being untrue to my values by having one. So yeah, just let me know and I'll get rid.
Yeah, and I think there's a really important point here is when you're running your own business, you need to do it your way. And I see so many people in their early days of doing what you're trying to do, and they're rushing around like a headless chicken trying to win business. And actually, if you're going to set up a portfolio FD business, you've got to get, as you say, the structure right. You've got to, you typically, we see the best portfolio FDs go from client to client to client to client. You know, it's aunties, you know, their auntie, sister Marys, whatever, on the pension counters, whatever, needy type stuff. And it is fundamentally about delivering a great job and taking some freelance assignments until you've built up that core client base that you then don't need the freelance stuff. But the problem is with, as you say, being the anti-marketer and relying on word of mouth, is that it can be a very slow start before it becomes a tidal wave. And as you say, you have more leads that you can handle. You just don't want to do most of them.
Fair comment. Yeah. Yeah. I would say we're not anti-marketing, we're anti-social media marketing. So
Yes.
just to
Yes.
get that
But
subtlety.
and I know, you know, but and as you say, actually, it is, it's about the negative stuff of social media. I saw somebody say, oh, I had 2 weeks away and I had 2 weeks away from the socials, and Instagram was the only one that I switched on, and I was dreading switching on. And I thought, oh my goodness. I'm like, I quite like switching on Instagram because I get a whole lot of physios telling me what I'm doing wrong, a whole lot of sewing stuff. I really don't follow anyone that I don't know or I'm not interested in. I think with this, so much of it is in our control, isn't it? It's what are you comfortable doing? What message do you want to put out there? But what you've got to do is be consistent. The worst thing you can do is go, I'm going to dabble in this for a bit. I'm going to dabble in that for a bit. And it doesn't work. So you chose to offshore your work to the Philippines. We talked a little bit about why you did that. It was a lower cost way, freed up your capacity. As you say, you needed operational people rather than FD level people. And and one of the nice things about the Philippines is if they're really on it, they do the work while you're asleep. So how did you make this work for you? Because we've got quite a lot of people going, ooh, let's build out a team in the Philippines. I could already see Tracy thinking about it. I could see quite a few people think. How did you make it work for you? Because a lot of people haven't.
Well, I think the fatal mistake that you can make is to especially when you're working with outsourcing companies as well, is to assume any kind of prior kind of knowledge, and I don't mean this to say that people don't have any knowledge out there, but it's like you've got to start from zero and work your way up. So yeah, we made sure that for every person we took on, we needed to train them first. Like, as much as you get told, oh yeah, we've got trained accountants, they can hit the ground running, we made the mistake of thinking that meant they could just give them work straight away, but it wasn't like that. So we need to train them first, as you would with an employee here in the UK, and really have an onboarding and training process, and show them the expectations of the role, communicate regularly. Don't assume that if no communication comes in, everything must be fine. It's probably the exact opposite. And so yeah, it's just like having it's a bit of a cliche. Everyone says it. It's just like having a UK based team member that you're in an office with. You've got to treat it exactly the same way, and have the right level of support, guidance, instruction, training to really allow them to grow and thrive. That's what we did to kind of get it working how I wanted.
Yeah. So how do you make the time difference work for you? Alice is wondering that.
Oh, well, the time difference works really well in our favor, actually. So yeah, if you can imagine, like you say, when I'm asleep in the early hours of Monday morning, the team are already working through the previous week's bookkeeping. They're preparing the pay slips for the weekly payrolls, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, having them ahead of us, on that side of the meridian line works really well, because they can be preparing stuff during the day. And then when I come online and we have like a daily meeting, 9-10 a.m. UK time, it's like kind of early evening there, or late afternoon. And so they're at the stage where they're ready to have their work reviewed and checked and ask questions and things like that. So yeah, the time difference works perfectly, actually.
So I think there's a really important point here. You've got a bit of a rhythm.
Yeah.
So the team know that, say, on a Monday, when they wake up, they've got to do all the payrolls for the Monday. They've got to do all the bookkeeping for the previous week. So that when you wake up at 9, they come to you with their queries, you review everything with them, and then you agree the priorities for the next day, which they know that it's on the system. So Damien's asked an interesting question, because I know Damien was outsourcing and then has brought it all back in-house. Are any of the outsourced team in communication with clients?
Yes, everyone is. Yeah. So we explained to clients that like we use an offshore team. Usually, I think that's brilliant. And yeah, if we didn't do that, and all the communication had to go through me, my life would be shit. I'd just be constantly passing messages back and forth, and I can't be bothered with that. So yeah, I want them to communicate again as if they're part of our team here in the UK. They message clients requesting information or sending out reports and things once they've been reviewed and stuff. And yeah, deal with queries, all that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't want to be the bottleneck for any of that. I'd rather just get out of the way and let them get on with it.
Yeah. So, do you have a daily call with them? Are listeners asking how much time in training do you actually, say you hired somebody tomorrow
Yeah.
out in the Philippines, at what point would you go, they're safe to let loose?
Depends what you mean by let loose. I mean, we get them, added to the client kind of WhatsApp groups and introduced within the first week or two. So the first week is kind of just like them absorbing information that we send to them to get them like onboarded and indoctrinated into how we work and what it is we do. But then straight away, yeah, we'll get them introduced to the clients. Everyone records a little welcome video to say hello to their webcam, records it on Loom, and we can send that out and say, rather than just saying, oh, here's this person with an email address and a phone number, it's like, here's a little video of them saying hi, so they can put a face and a voice to the name. And yeah, obviously they're not going to be doing the full spectrum of communications, but like we get them introduced nice and early so that they can feel like they're part of our team and vice versa with the clients.
Mm-hmm. So you'll do a daily call with them. How long does that
Yeah.
daily call normally last?
Usually, well, about an hour. We tried to get it down to half an hour, but we found we were kind of running short of time. So yeah, so I basically invest an hour between 10 and 11 every day to go through all the queries they've got. And what we've started to do now as well is actually to build the review time into that call. So we used to have it where they would come with questions and queries and things, and they'd send me a message say, right, this VAT return, for example, is now ready for your review, Rich. I go, okay, great, cool. That's added to my to-do list. And then the day takes over, your diary's full. Didn't get around to it that day. Next day, have you done the VAT return review? No, not yet. Sorry, I'll get around to it. And it became really challenging to kind of carve out the time to review. So we now have that within our meetings with the team so that they get the benefit of A, it getting done there and then on time, and B, by walking through it with them on screen, they can see what sort of things I'm looking for, what sort of things I'm picking up. And then next time they've got the insight and the learning so that they can sort of self-correct a lot of the same errors, or not necessarily errors, just, have the answers in their back pocket ready for when I ask the question. So yeah, that's been a real positive thing that we've done to kind of improve the relationship and the workflow.
Yeah, I love that. So my apologies. Pangche's got an interesting question. I'm going to answer that one. The question is, if we focus merely on our personal network, we'd not be able to scale up. Do you think buying leads makes sense? The answer is, if you're doing what Rich is doing, which is it's not about accountancy, it's about a business partnering, co-pilot, extension of your business. Most people when they're buying those leads, it's price sensitive stuff. It really doesn't work. So really what you've got to do is you've got to expand your personal network. And a lot of people either don't have the wherewithal to do it, or don't have the energy to do it, or don't know how to do it. And, here's a simple exercise that I'd recommend to anyone to do. And it was something that was I can't remember the name of the person that told me, so it's not my exercise, where you want to do 60 and 60. And that's 60 calls or meetings in 60 days with potential prospects for your service. So what you do is you get up your either your clients or former people you've worked with, and you book a call with them. And you say, look, I just want to pick your brains. What's happening right now? What's going on in your business? And you go, I'm looking to extend my network. And one of the questions I'm going to ask you is, who do you think I should be talking to as well? So you then have that conversation and you ask them for that introduction to the next. And you basically carry on going through people's networks like that. And if within 60 days you haven't picked up some decent leads, then there's normally a problem with how you're listening. But, you know, that's a very simple way of expanding your personal network. But we normally don't have that diligence. So it's like, if you think, actually, I can't do it through my network, you put the time in your diary, you do your brainstorm. Now, I know Rich doesn't use social media, but if he did use social media and needed to do this, you'd use something like LinkedIn to sort of very quickly get to your first 10 people to find them to book that call. But what's really important is it's picking your brains, want to talk to you about what's happening in the industry, you know, and you want to have an opinion on something that's relevant. So for at the moment, getting low cost financing with interest rates going up and down quicker than a tart Snickers, you know, is a really good topic to talk to a lot of people in this sort of world. So hopefully that's answered some of that question. Would you say any differently, Rich?
No, I'd kind of agree. For me, if we look at our hospitality business niche, like in Leeds, so independent owner managed hospitality businesses that are kind of size we want to work with, there must be over 100 of them. We've got capacity to deal with about 15, I think, to hit what we need to want to hit by the end of this year. So we're not going after the whole market. We only need to get 10% of it. And that's just in Leeds. You know, who's to say we wouldn't work with another business in Manchester or Newcastle? You know, we're not limited to just this city. But yeah, and so I think if you said to me, right, you're starting from scratch, which you don't know anyone, like off you go, try and find some clients. I'd probably do figure out where they hang out in person. I probably wouldn't do online. I'd go to the meetups, the industry events, that sort of thing, and just kind of rub shoulders and hand out business cards and things like that. That would be my approach.
And you know what? So I'm campaigning to stand as an independent councillor in the local elections.
Oh,
I know. That's yes. I try and keep that side of my life quiet because I didn't realise I had that side of my life. And you'll be surprised. So we were out door knocking, you know, on our feet, door knocking. And a lot of people won't do that in business terms. They won't go out and they won't go and door knock. And interestingly, there were the busy mums that said, "Sorry, I'm just doing dinner, I can't talk now." But we learn a huge amount of intelligence about what really bothered local residents through 15 or 13 hours of knocking on doors in a small part of my local town. And you know, some of this is just having the chutzpah to go and do it. You know, I would have never normally talked to any of my neighbours, but before this call, I went and delivered 50 leaflets, and there were 3 people that were kind of by their car standing there. So I had a quick chat. Wouldn't have done that. And I think this part of this is we forget that the old ways of networking is still as good. But you've just got to choose which way you're going to do it and do it. So what's next, Rich? You've highlighted that, you know, 15 capacity for 15 more clients. What's next?
So we finished building the team. So we've got a target to kind of get one other UK team member on board this year, a couple more in the Philippines to give us the capacity. Withdrawing myself from all the client work is like a key sort of strategic objective. So if we can get to the stage where I'm not doing anything that we can raise an invoice for, like I want all that to be done by other people using systems and processes that I've developed and tweaked, then we've got something that's scalable. And then, you know, it gives me kind of the kind of freedom and the lifestyle that I want. And I'm not again, I don't want to be the bottleneck, as I mentioned before, with the communication. So yeah, if we can get a team of people who are able to deliver the same amount of value as I did when it was just me, or even more value, probably, then that's our kind of next, the next sort of milestone on our journey, I think.
Absolutely. And as you say, you cannot be scalable if it still needs Rich to do the sort of key conversations. Quick question, what practice management software do you use? Alistair's asking, and I asked that from perspective of setting up and monitoring processes.
Yeah, so it's not really one that most people have heard of. We actually use an app called Process Street, and it's actually more to do with generating your standard operating procedures. and checklists. That's what it's basically geared up to do. And then it has functionality around triggering due dates, that sort of thing. But we don't use any of the sort of standard ones that you'll have heard of, because we found that Process Street's way more customizable than any of the others. So it's similar to Monday, I think, that you use, Heather, isn't it?
So we use Monday.com, and I think there's a really important point here. You've got to think about what type of business you are. So if you are what we would call a general practice, then do look first at the specialized accountancy practice management tools. They will do 90% of the heavy lifting for you and have really cool things like they'll be able to get stuff out of company's house without having you going in there. But what they're not is completely customizable. And as you and I, we're using more generic project management tools. But it's if you are a portfolio FD business with a small number of clients and a large need for bespoke processes, then you may need to be looking at that kind of tool. But I know of some of FDs, portfolio FDs that are very, very happy with Pixie. It's got that nice balance. Newsflash, I believe we've just organised a discount for new members of Pixie from the club to get access to it. So a bit of a newsflash for a discount. But yeah, so Alistair is using Pixie. So yeah, Alistair is a good piece of software. And I was speaking to the owner of Pixie recently, and he said, yeah, we plan to be independent for a long, long time. So there's not that fear of, oh, look who Sage has bought next, and now we can't get access to it 2 years later. So absolutely. So Rich, really have loved this conversation. I knew I would. I knew I would. We could have talked for much, much longer, but I realized that I've gone over quite a bit. So thank you very much. If anybody's got any more questions for Rich, put them on now or forever hold your peace. But Rich, is it Rich at Cloudco?
Rich at cloudcfo.uk.
Cloudcfo.uk, or is it got code?
No, just .uk. Yeah.
Right, let me just put that on.
Someone had nabbed the code.uk one, so I had to self-register.
I think everybody's asked their questions as they've gone along, which is always nice when it happens, because we don't get this whole list of things. But seriously, we've got some club members here. So Rich is a club member, and I'm pretty sure that he will, if you want to pick up the phone to him, he will properly share what he's doing, probably ask some questions as well, because it is all about this, sharing and supporting each other. But thank you very much, Rich. I've really enjoyed that. And we'll have the recording out soon. So thank you, everyone. And most of all, Rich, for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks, Heather. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
See you soon.